Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, loud and clear. Good morning, Tristram.
Good morning, you.
And how is the world?
Yes, please. It's good, thanks. I just got back from London.
Oh, what, from all that work with Izzy?
Yeah, we weren't working. It was her birthday yesterday, so we went to a play and stayed the night.
Oh, right. What did you see?
Dear Octopus by J.D. Smith. It was very good. The
Is it?
National.
Right.
I recommend it.
So it sounds like it ought to be humorous.
It was a sort of family drama.
Okay.
The octopus was the tentacles of the family.
Right. Right.
So how many
Morning,
people have you
Jackie.
got joining today?
I've actually run out of what's the word I'm looking for? Count. I'm going to have a look.
Yeah.
I'm going to go and have a look. I think it should be a good idea.
And what have you done to your forehead? It looks like you smacked into something.
No, I think it's a greater one of life's great mysteries. Let's see.
I hope you're not being battered by Sean.
I'm sure it's high on the list of priorities. But yes. I've just had an email from the past chairman of the Long Sutton Village Hall Committee, who is incensed to discover that 4 years after he left, he's still listed as the main contact at the bank and he's still able to sign checks. Sometimes the paperwork takes a long time to go through. Yeah,
it does.
need
While
lots.
we're waiting, I was going to catch up on some emails.
Yeah. Just getting pen and paper handy for all the questions and answers of I was anticipating. Supposed to have a co-chair today, so I do hope she's going to arrive.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that was said with too much enthusiasm.
Sorry. I was reading Chris's response to my climate emergency public map.
Okay.
So just taking that in. Hang on.
Right. Just for your information, I'm talking to 7 councillors from Cambridge this evening, put together.
Yeah.
Have you met Chris Poynton yet?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's put together his local communities that want to have a look at Parish Online. So,
oh, good.
Yeah, I thought so.
Excellent.
Well, it will be if they decide to take it up.
Well, it's excellent that you're talking to them anyway.
Oh, that's true.
So thank you for doing that. That's good news from Chris.
Oh, right. Good.
Great.
Oh,
so there's a lady by the name of Liz Shaler has just arrived.
Hello.
Hello, Liz.
Hi, Liz. I was just thinking that Liz Shaler used to be the head of my daughter's prep school.
No,
But
I
I'm
was a
delighted
teacher,
to tell you
but
that
not head.
you are not she. Well, she took over after a headmaster and wife who had found it quite extraordinary that I complained about something that was going on in the school, and they didn't think it was possible for anything to be wrong. And so we never did see eye to eye.
Well, it's lucky I'm not her then. No, I was a teacher, but no, certainly not a head.
Right. Well, we're all celebrating at this end because my daughter, who's just doing her PSGE or GC, whatever it is, or PCGE, yes, PCGE.
PGCE.
Yeah, exactly. She's just been told that by her old school that they will take her on as her first real job. So she's
That's very good.
very happy about that. Yeah.
Well done.
On the other hand, it means that we stay tied to Somerset. So where all the water is.
Yeah. So Liz, where is Banwell?
So it's just outside of Weston-super-Mare on the
Right.
southwest.
More Somerset.
Okay.
Oh, there's no escaping Somerset.
Well, we're technically North Somerset, but
I was talking to a lady just northwest of Frome yesterday, who again is putting in Parish Online, and she was in one of those double-barreled names that you can never remember afterwards. Blinkman Plunkett or something.
Yeah. There's some very good names, don't there?
Yes.
Throbwell. What's that? Nebnet Throbwell. So
yes.
he's the best.
Well, let me say good afternoon to Andrew and Amanda and Jackie and Gary. And I'm sort of pausing or beating for time, desperately waiting for my co-chair to show up. So this is going to be even more of a wing it session than I thought it was going to be.
I've been speaking to town and parish councils in Warwickshire this morning, and Liz, maybe just to know that the issue about retrofitting public buildings came up, so I was able to mention the case study that we did. Seems a long time ago now, doesn't it, Liz? But anyway,
well, you'll be pleased to know that they are in. Solar panels are done and dusted, and I have this wonderful app on my phone if I'm feeling really bored, that I can look at where the electricity is being generated, whether it's going to the grid, whether it's going to the battery, whether it's going to the building, how much we're using.
How sweet.
wonderful.
Sounds like the sort of thing you expect to see in your car.
That's a cure for insomnia if I've ever heard one. There you go.
Oh, my vice chairman loves it. He keeps checking to see how much electricity we're using. And he said to me the other day, oh, have you just put a kettle on? Yeah.
Big brother is watching you.
You wait till AI comes in as well, and AI will be analysing that app and giving you all the summary and coming up with optimised.
Oh,
no, but since AI has told me that the Pope is a lady, I'm not that convinced that they know what they're talking about.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yes, it's Google's version, which I think is called Gemini. They hastily took down after it showed that the Pope was an Asian lady, actually, and a typical, what was it? They had somebody who turned out to be a Viking who was black wearing a baseball hat. So a Gemini needs some more tweaking, I think.
Sounds like they've been hacked. Yeah. Yeah. There was that film, Pope Joan, wasn't it? I can't remember the name of the actress. Some Scandinavian actress was playing Pope Joan. When she ended up being Pope in the Middle Ages somewhere.
Oh.
Yes. All right. Obviously, no other film buffs in the room remember that. She came to a nasty end.
Andrew, can I mention something if you're still waiting to get started?
Go ahead, Amanda.
Okay, thank you. I've been asked by Scribe to present as part of the Scribe Academy. You know, the 1 hour sessions that they have that clerks and councillors can attend.
Right.
And they've asked, and I've suggested the topic be biodiversity, parish and town council's duty.
Woo.
So obviously, I will be in touch with you all in relation to what we regard as being best practice to share for parish and town councils.
Sure. Well, we've got a guidance already on both the NALC and SLC websites, and I'm busy working up something on biodiversity net gain as well. So yeah, sure, get in touch. Yeah.
It's more a question of it's a platform. It's what this group is doing, as much as it is the other way around, if you see what I mean. So I jumped at it as a great opportunity to share some of the examples of really good practice.
Yeah, fine, by all means. Yeah. No, we were fortunate too, because I presented it to a Gloucestershire County Association meeting, and two officers from DEFRA who were responsible for the biodiversity net gain happened to be attending, and they quite liked it. So we've got an unofficial DEFRA print on that piece of work. So there we are.
And Andrew, I was in the background on that call because where I'm councillor, I didn't want my clerk feeling. So I was in the background. I wasn't with her. I was with another clerk. So I'd have the benefit of your presentation as well.
Oh, benefit. Kind of you to say so.
Absolutely benefit.
All right,
the other thing is, sorry, Cotswold National Landscape has also produced its, you know how a lot of organisations are producing their BNG work. So I was going to send in, is it still at the stage, I guess we'll find that out by the end of today's session, but is it still a question of emailing it to Graham or Andrew, or is it possible to deposit it directly now?
It's a question of emailing it to Graham or Andrew, please, Amanda.
Will do, because that's a collaborative action of 6 different county councils and all the district and parishes within it, coming up with the framework for the whole Cotswolds AONB, Cotswold National Landscape area, and it's looking at our route map for 2050 for net zero.
What? Right. It's be quite a document, quite a project. Yes.
It's not the answer. It's the whole thing is kind of you know, this is the direction we're heading in. Now let's fill in the gaps around the framework.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, let me say good afternoon to everybody, and thank you all for coming. And I don't think I've said hello to Chris yet, so hello, Chris, and welcome, Sarah. There is a huge sigh of relief at this end that you've arrived. And today we're going to try a slightly new experiment. We thought we might let you know how the thinking is going on the Great Collaboration, and let you see the sort of paths that Sarah's mind is weaving its way down in a very novel fashion. And I hope that you will all find it breathtakingly refreshing, which I certainly did when I was clobbered with it yesterday. So today's presentation is a reflection of me, in that it's incredibly austere and dull and colorless, rather like my life. So I welcome you all to watch the words and read what they say, but don't pay attention to the complete lack of color. It's a day when we're going to ask for your intervention as much as possible. So by all means, feel happy to interrupt the speaker, because that's the sort of day we're looking for. On the other hand, it is really helpful if people either put things into chat or raise their hands, because I'm sharing this session with Sarah. So if I'm speaking, she'll keep an eye on what people are saying or raising hands, and can break it off, because I won't be seeing them if I'm tied to the slideshow, and vice versa. So it's the sort of thing we're looking for: instant feedback, strike while the iron is hot and the idea is still in your head, or at least put it into the chat so we don't miss it. But I'm looking for this to be a very interactive session, please. So I'm going to try sharing my screen, see where we go from there. And if I get rid of this, we'll be in great shape. So the, first slide is announcing what we're doing today. And I've just been advised by my co-chair that what we're talking about is a question and answering service with a bucket attached to catch new information and string to tie you all together. So who knew that she was so interested in roping people up? So an update on where we're going. What we think the user experience should be are in the very early stages. And as I said, lots of feedback, please, from everybody. So just to reinforce people who weren't quite sure what we're doing, we're dedicated to hoping out things at the local and council and community level. And we really want to be the best go-to place for people who are looking to really get their local communities and parishes and councils working on trying to reduce climate change as much as possible and getting us to net zero. So, woo, did I get there? Yeah, I did. All right. So, this wonderful slide is meant to represent that bucket with the bits of string being tied to people. That the data set within Great Collaboration isn't data per se, it's links to other data that already exists on the web. And we're looking to sort it, all that sort of great conglomeration of projects and case studies and histories and all the rest of it, so that it gives you, the user who's asking questions, the answers that you most want and are pertinent to you, depending upon what size community you're coming from, how much skill set you've got, all those sorts of things. And at the same time, we would like people who are more further down the road in their climate change practices to advise back what their experiences have been, what are the things to avoid, what is the best practice to get where we're all trying to get to. So it's a continuous flow of information, and we hope that it'll become crystal clear and easy for everybody. So one of the jobs that I'm going to be asking for today, and this is one that I'd like to save towards the end, please, for answers, but when you've got all that data out there on the internet, how do you judge the merit of the links that we're going to be putting into place for people? So how does one take a look at a report and say this is appropriate to what sort of council, what size is it, where is it in terms of rural or urban? Is this a community that's got lots of local skills in place or none? And is the report still the best practice? So those are the sorts of questions that I'm looking for answers to. And of course, the bucket will be sorted in respect to some of the answers that we get. So starting right at the beginning, the question is, what experience are users going to get from coming to the bucket? And the first question that we looked at, and which is the one that Sarah is going to be talking about shortly, is what sort of user are you in terms of experience and IT literacy and that sort of thing. Then we're going to talk about what should be your first time ever experience of the site once it's up and running properly. Because there will be people who just come to look at it, and the first thing we want them to have is a very good experience. Which will be the sort of things that happen before people register. And then there will be the question of why are people registering and what are we hoping to get from it. And then the overall target that we're trying to aim for is to enable people to get the information they want that is most suitable and appropriate to their needs and their size and their location and their environment, if you will. In 3 clicks of first arriving at the site. So that's a pretty high target, I think, to shoot for. But I just wanted to let you, the audience, know that that is what we're aiming for. So we've broken down the sort of users that we're hoping to deal with into 4 types. And we've given them names which vary according to the pictures that Sarah chose to describe these people. Fred, as you can see, is Monsieur a bit more techie, and I thought Fred was an extremely French name and therefore very suited to this thing. So these are the types we're going to work on. Now, we're only going to work on Ray and Fred today. Kirsten and Bill are a bit further down the line, and so we'll come back to you on a later date for information at their level. But we're going to move on now to first guys, and I think this is probably where I switch over to Sarah. I went the wrong way, didn't I? I'm so sorry. I'm going that way. So I'm going to hand over to Sarah to speak now to this slide, please.
Hello. Now then, I'm sort of slightly embarrassed that my fatuous prattlings are now in the public domain, so forgive me for that. But on the other hand, fatuous prattling is my strong point, so let's keep going with that. So the issue that I have is that I am the parish clerk for a very small rural community, and I think we probably have a preponderance of a particular kind of person on our parish council. But when I've been talking to other people within the group who are clerks or involved with other bigger councils or organisations, that the kind of person I'm thinking of clearly isn't representative across the piece. So there's more than one kind of person that we have to have a really good first user experience to, which makes it really complicated. So my first chap here is the kind of person, if I were to say that the average age of my council in April last year was 73, and we've been doing things pretty much the same for the past 40 odd years, not terribly decisive. And the whole notion of saying to someone, here's a new website, would have no traction whatsoever. So there was a lot of thinking about how do you grab these people and grab their interest. They're, if you like, tiny little flicker of enthusiasm for doing something about climate change without scaring them off with some big demands about registering on a website and so on and so forth. And then just, I'll come back to Ray in a minute, but just moving on to the person who basically is me, who I'm not a complete techno idiot, but I'm close to one. And I'm quite keen to look at websites and things, but the minute it starts getting difficult, I'll give up. And there's no need for me to learn anything new because I'm retired and there's no sort of benefit. So in order to keep me engaged, I need to find something which is pretty much exactly what I'm looking for. The links work. It's not trying to sell me anything, and it's not something to do with America. So those are the two kinds of people that I'm going to have a little bit of a think about at the moment with you. It is really important that to say that the Kirsten and the Bill are also in need of having a good user experience. And if they come in the same route as Ray, they'll be thinking, but I know all this, what am I having to do all of this? So it's kind of difficult to try and weave that bit of magic, and thought's very welcome. So just going back to Ray, we're thinking that it would be great if we could register him on a website, find out what size council he's got, what's he interested in, what's already going on in his area. But actually my experience is that Ray's thinking, oh, my friend's running a community orchard and I'd quite like to have a go at that, or any other example. So that is the starting point for that. So based on a piece of work that I've seen done elsewhere, the idea is the first point of contact is by email, because I think that people who are perhaps older and who live in sort of small communities, perhaps small rural communities, can do email and they can do Zoom. So I think we can take those as given. The COVID pandemic did actually help in that respect. So we're trying to find a way of emailing all the clerks in the world. Just a single email which says, this is the Great Collaboration. This is broadly speaking what it's trying to do. I should probably say that this isn't the only communication route, it's just one. And if you click on this link here, which I think they will happily do, it will take them to one or two places, and that's what these two columns are about that you've got in front of you. So the first one is basically a list of climate actions, which includes community orchards, and it includes wildflowering verges and planting trees, and all the things that my experience of small rural communities is that people are interested in. They're not very interested in EV charging points and solar panels and the council fleet, because we just don't operate like that. So it starts very small, but they can click on that link and they will get one of Andrew's wonderful one-page how-tos back by return of post, if you like, without having to go anywhere near a website or anywhere near registering. And although it's only a small part of the story that we want to try and get out of them. It's the start. And the plan is that if they do click on that link and they do get this piece of paper back, then there will be links within that which will sort of take them into the website without them even knowing they've gone. So that's kind of plan A. And then on the other side, sorry, I won't sort of, because you've got it in front of you, you can see what it says. On the other side, you'll know from earlier discussions that the Great Collaboration isn't just a website. It's about these banter sessions are a really good, strong element of them. There will be a forum, you know, like a kind of standard question and answer forum. There's be access to existing training, access to Great Collaboration webinars, access to experts, and hopefully access to these people called county advisors, who are the sort of oil in the machine at county level. So the idea of the right-hand side is that we can take them into at least some of those without them having to register and be frightened off by a website. So that's probably enough to give you a broad basis. Just if I could just go on to the, I can't remember your French person, Alphonse André. There he is. So this person doesn't want to go through all that rigmarole. They want to go pretty much to the website and register. But once they've done that, happy to give the information about how big the council is, so on and so forth. Once they've done that, and again, this is me, so I'm putting my hand up to say not everybody's going to think like this, but I don't want it to be difficult. So the minute it gets difficult, I'll give up, go and do something else. I do want it to be pertinent, and I'm prepared to put in a small amount of effort, and I am prepared to explore and learn. So there's a lot more opportunity for our French chap than there is for the rural councillor. But even so, I think that the absolute crucial thing is that the first thing they see, they think, that's what I'm looking for. So that's the kind of one of the things where you could really help us today. The only thing I will say before I shut up is that as far as I can tell, the town and parish councils cover 30 million people nationally, and the average size population for a town or parish council is 3,000, which seems really small. And I know you can't do the sums like that, but it sort of implies there's somewhere between 10 and 15 million people who are in small rural parish councils. So, you know, it's really worth hitting them, even if it's hard work. But that wasn't too much of a ramble.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Sarah. Big help. So I've got a pause here. If anyone wants to make any comments so far, please, and I'll just come out of here so I can see if there are any hands raised. But so far, nothing and not much. Oh, there are some comments on chat. Do we need to look at those, Sarah, or are they all done?
I hope they're all done. Just have a little look. I'm just agreeing with everything.
Okay, whilst you're looking at those, we've got hands raised. So Belinda, would you like to come forward, please?
Hi, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I completely agree with Sarah. I'm in a small rural parish and deal with much smaller ones around Dorset as well. And I think, you know, she's completely right about the mindset. And also, I would just add, I've been putting it in the chat, but I think we need to be really careful about talking about climate change, because it's unfortunately become politically contentious and people will just shut their ears automatically. And I just think we need to be really careful about how we promote this. And we need to, because we are covering the whole sort of gamut, if you like, of environmental action. So we are looking at nature recovery, we're looking at adaptation as well as mitigation, which is the net zero. But net zero and climate change in and of itself has become difficult for people, even sort of, you know, the middle of the ground people. They see it as either not their job or too politically sensitive. So we need to be careful, even within our own, you know, in our own group, that we don't just focus on climate change and net zero, because I think if we do it the other way around and talk about nature recovery and community resilience and adaptation, as well as we just need to package what we're saying as well, because that is what we're doing. I think the government talks about 3 pillars, doesn't it? So we can use those. But yeah, I completely agree with Sarah about the mindsets, and even those of us that are probably on the active side of things don't necessarily feel comfortable with the text. So I'd second that as well.
Okay, thanks very much, Belinda. Tristram, you are very quiet.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I want to put a slightly contrary view, because I come from a parish which is very small, and our parish councillors are also mostly old and not very techy. But what we found is that the units climate change and environmental action is a community-wide thing, and we found plenty of volunteers in the community who are very keen to lead and support the climate action. And they are, one of their attributes is they tend to be tech savvy. And I just slightly worry that if we make it very easy for people to take part in a great collaboration without giving us information, it's slightly a one-way street. And isn't there a case for saying, well, if you're going to take part in this, we do want you to log in and give us the information that you're doing and give us feedback, and it's a two-way street to collect information how people are getting on. So I wonder if we're creating a sort of short circuit by saying you can have it all, you don't need to tell us anything. It'll just be, you just take it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think that's the conjuring trick, isn't it? Because we don't want to kind of fuse them. And we go back one stage. I think the difficulty is that I've been thinking in terms of small rural parishes, bigger parishes, and very big parishes. And in fact, it's much more like kinds of people. So you get all sorts everywhere. And I completely agree that the community is often a lot more switched on than the council, but not always. So, you're having to sort of deal with a very large number of different combinations. But I think you're absolutely right.
There's just one other point I forgot to make. We suggested that our parish might group up with another couple of parishes, and I know that happened in Suffolk with Jules. So, if you're talking about combining your activities with 4 or 5 parishes, I think it's quite easy to find somebody who's very comfortable with the tech of a website. And I just wonder if it's worth. I completely understand that you want to make it easy for people to engage, but maybe if we make it too easy, we won't get the engagement we really need. And it's good to encourage somebody to say, well, actually, this website has got a bit of tech requirement, but go and find it.
Well, I think what you're highlighting, Tristram, is that we're catering to a very wide range of people. And one of the opening pages on the website is going to have to be to enable people to sort out which route they want to come in through, because you're right. The people who do know what they're looking for and they're interested are not going to go run through the sort of help me with the 1-page descriptions and send me an email back. They're going to want to dive straight in. But what we're trying to find is a design of a path that caters to these people, so they can.
Yeah, but Graham, I'm sorry, I may have not explained it very well. But my worry is if you've got a 70-year-old clerk who's not tech, and he or she thinks that he or she can sort of get all the value out, isn't it almost better to say the 70-year-old needs to say, actually, this is a problem where we need a bit more tech savvy, and let's find somebody. So the first step almost is for the people who aren't tech savvy to find somebody who's going to lead and can actually manage the website.
Well, I've paused the conversation for this slide to cover what we've gone into so far. So I think maybe it's worth my going on and saying what would the other routes be. But let me just check first of all whether Amanda wants to have a word with us.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just agreeing really about that it was maybe types of people rather than types of parishes, because I've got experience with a small rural parish council which I clerked in the past tense, where at least 2 or 3 of them were farmers, landowners, estate managers, but they were owners as well as managing in a particular way. And yet they were a very small council with very little resource, and that was clerking was 4 or 5 hours a week. And then I've got my big council where we've got 13 councillors and I'm a councillor, and actually very little kind of progress, or very little individuals who've got the knowledge and the know-how, whether that's within, but the whole I'm taking the point about wording here and language and hesitating. So let's say environmental action. In general, we had an emerging environmental action working group, which then folded due to lack of resource. And that was lack of resource because councillors were too busy doing other things that they regarded as their priority. And never mind the fact there was a whole load of community members on it that would have happily taken it forward, but they weren't even asked. It was just the council was too busy, so we shut it down. So big councils don't necessarily equal, got the resource to do it or the interest or whatever it is. And the small councils can be full of the right people. So I think the pen sketch idea I rather liked, and I hear about the language. So I'm now really, sensitive about what I'm saying. So I'll keep quiet at that point, but I like the idea of the 4 pen sketches, although I think I'm more attuned to the Kirstens and the Bills, and I don't mean me, I mean the people that I work with and who have been expressing an interest in this emerging beastie.
Okay, Amanda, thank you. I've written down lots of things for you. Liz, could you help us out, please?
So yeah, I like the 4 pen sketches. However, I think the point that I wanted to make was just in relation to what is the point of the website. If the point of the website is to give out information, does it really matter if we collect anything? If the point is to try and get as many people as possible to plant wildflowers, plant trees, do net zero things, put up solar panels, if that is the point, then actually making it as basic and as simple as possible is the way forward. However, if we want the information from them, if we kind of want that payback in a sense, and that is the point of the website, then yes, we can make it more technical and register and get people to register. My feeling is personally the first one. I'm very lucky. My council range from late 20s to mid 70s. So the average age is about, 40, 45. However, I've got somebody who's passionate about the environment on there, but I've also got a climate change. It doesn't believe that it happens. He thinks it's all something cooked up by the government to get us to do certain things. So we've got a huge spectrum of people on there. However, a quarter of our new strategic plan is all about the environment and about getting things done on the environment. I would hate for the website to fail because we are trying to get information out of people rather than allowing those people who want to engage.
I think your concern should be eased by the next couple of slides, Liz, but thank you. I've taken in your points. Let's go on to Belinda, please.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I was just going to ask, probably it'll come out in the next few minutes, but presumably there's nothing to stop either individuals or community groups to register with the website. I suppose Tristram's concern is mostly that we, in order to develop all the case studies and have the good information back from how successful or not we're being, then it would help to have parish councils registering. But it may well be that they would do so. I think Sarah's point is perhaps if they've got a sort of gentle, easy, helpful introduction, they might sort of come to it almost via their community pressure or their external environmental working groups. So presumably there's nothing to stop either individuals or community groups to register with the website. I think that would be my question.
Absolutely. So let's go on to Sarah, who looks like she may be answering your questions herself.
I just wanted to go back to Tristan's point, really, because I think it's a really good one. And I'm wondering that we want to try and catch people who will have nothing to do with a website. They'll just go and wash the car or do something else. But at the same time, we do really want to get them involved with the website. So I'm just wondering if we could do that by being clever with the comms. And sort of spelling out the advantages of taking the extra step or finding the person who knows how to use the IT, but at the same time still allowing them to be better informed about how to set up an allotment if their other reaction is I'm off. So perhaps we could finesse it to include the two.
Yes, well, I suspect that A, we'll try and take this into consideration as we design the site, and B, as we get answers back from people, we'll get the feedback and have to be flexible in our approach. Let me press on to the last couple of slides, and then we can have another discussion. So I'm coming back to here, and if I go to there, let me just go. Sorry, I've come out of slideshow, haven't I? That's all the problem is. Let's go back into slideshow. All right, so then the question comes, why would you want people to register? And the answer, these are my answers, so I'm wide open to suggestions from others, please, is that we want to be able to give the most appropriate responses back to you, depending upon who you are and what role you're calling it. So this is the business of, are you a parish council? Are you a town council? Are you an individual? Are you particularly a community group? So we would need to capture that information, the sort of community that you are, the sort of size that you are, the sort of resources you've got available. You know, are you an organization that's got all sorts of skills in terms of retrofit and solar panels? Ooh, whatever an installator is, I like that. Or are you just a poor old parish clerk with 8 hours a week to devote to the problem? What sort of climate experience are you drawing on when this is sort of slightly the point that we've all been touching on? What route do the people who know what they're looking for go in? They've been doing this for the last 5 years and they just want to make sure they're up to speed with best practice. Or are you just starting? So I think we've got to try and capture this information. The point being that once we've caught it, then that pertinent information is preloaded when you log in. So that since our goal is to try and make you able to get to the information you want within 3 clicks, it really helps if we already know that you're a small rural community with 3 carpenters and a dog as your available resources, or whether you're a Birmingham, which is trying to build a complete community heat pump site. Whatever it happens to be. So I think that's the point I'm trying to make, is we want people to register so that they can capture that information and they don't have to be asked for it in future when they're trying to say, I want to do this. And we're trying to say, well, are you 5 people? Are you 500 houses? Or are you 100,000 houses? That sort of thing. And then this is sort of a question that, again, just to let people know, we're working on this and trying to find what would help give the most suitable answers to people. So when you're scoring data or giving it weight according to who should we be giving to this to, and what is the best practice in this particular area. You know, if you go out there and say, we've just declared a climate emergency, what's next? And someone says, well, the next thing is to come up with a climate action plan. And then you go out there and you can find 500 climate action plans. And the question is, which one is the one for you to go with? And then I'm asking, so how do we sort out which is the one for you to go with? You know, do you base it upon the clarity of the document in explaining what it is that you need to do and how you're going to get there? Are there lots of charts and diagrams and photographs and steps to take? Is there a listing of things that you shouldn't be doing so that you can save people a lot of time and trouble? And is it clear what the target audience is for this particular document? Or doesn't it not matter? Is it the same document applicable to a 500-person community as to a 5,000-person community? And then, of course, I put the row of question marks because I'm sure there's bunches of questions that I haven't asked yet, but I probably need to take into account. So again, this is just an idea to start your brains hopefully rolling on topics that we're looking at and thinking how best do we get the best answer to people's questions. And then basically I've come to the end of what we wanted to do because I thought that probably what I said would trigger lots of action, thoughts or arguments. I'm going to come out of the presentation now so I can see people's thoughts. Oh God, they're all climbing up in queues. Jackie, would you like to go, please?
Okay, I put my hand up when you said what size of council, is it 500, 5,000, 50,000? I don't know whether you're aware of Net Zero Go, which is for county councils and above. So Net Zero Go is the toolkit for local authorities. I was employed by the Energy Systems Catapult to establish a local authority user group to test and validate the minimum viable product for Net Zero Go. So, and it ended up being a £1.5 million project. So that's how big it could get. So I don't think you want to get that big. You want to look at parish and town councils, because for anything bigger, you've got Net Zero Go. And Net Zero Go has got a whole library of case studies. Some of the case studies are some of the good stuff that more advanced local communities have done. So I was just thinking, just keep it town and parish councils.
Well, that's a brilliant help, because I think if people come in who are larger than town and parish councils, then they needs to be reminded that they can go to NetGo. I mean, I think we should have a link on our site to them.
The only thing with Net Zero Go is you have to have a .gov.uk email address to access it. You have to sign up to join it. You have to be in a local authority. So
right, but it sounds as if the sort of people that we be directing there are going to have those addresses anyway, aren't they?
Yes, if they're
or at least it would help us if we put a note on there saying, by the way, you're going to need this.
Borough and district councils and above, yeah, they'd have a .gov.uk. I know one of the things that they found out, so they looked at all of the barriers as to why local authorities aren't actually getting engaged, and one of the things was not knowing where to start.
Yes.
So that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you very much, Jackie. It's a big help. Back to Sarah.
I think we're back to the same problem, that there's so many different variations on this. So I read a lot of climate action plans when our council had a sort of shot of electricity across their temples and suddenly decided they wanted one. And I thought, crikey, this looks really difficult. And I also secretly thought, crikey, I'm going to have to do this. So I switched those off. And then I thought of this brilliant idea of rounding up, because we've got a lively community, all the things which are going on in the community. I wrote them all down on a piece of paper, put Grenfell Parish Council across the top, and said, here is my action plan, because I found out that basically you don't have to follow a template, you can do what the hell you like. So that worked really well for us. But then other councils who don't have lively communities are actually needing to generate the activity. So they've got a very different path to go down. And then there's Gamlingate, which doesn't have a climate emergency at all, but it's nevertheless, nor indeed a sort of formal action plan underneath it. But it's nevertheless got a huge amount going on. So I did write a piece of paper somewhere about, before you start thinking about what you're going to do action plan wise, work out what you need it to do, because it's not a formal thing at all. It's all aimed at helping you to get where you want to be. So that might be something that we'll have to build into it.
Okay, thank you very much, Sarah. Tristram?
Yeah, I was just ruminating on what is it we want to get out of the users in this registration process, and I was thinking that I don't know how much of the great collaboration is going to be passive documentation and case studies, and how much of it is going to be collaborative and interactive sessions. So, you know, the sort of banter sessions we're having today, I can imagine the great collaboration would want to hold a sort of seminar on, I don't know, hedgehog management, or, you know, whatever it is, solar panels, residential solar, or whatever it is, and users could come into that, and somebody could explain what they've done in their parish, and you'd get a lot of feedback. And I think that feedback is really important, because how are we going to know whether the advice we're giving is useful unless we get people engaging with it and saying, well, this worked and this didn't work, and that feedback process will improve the service we can give. So I see quite a big part of this website being the right-hand column of things, which is the interactive feedback and sessions explaining what people are doing and how did you get on, and also, by the way, pointing to people. So if a parish came in from New Hampshire, you might say, well, you know, from our database we know that this council and this council have done similar work, you know, how about talking to them, because you might be able to join their club. So I sort of see it being a very interactive process, and not, and that's why I slightly sort of think if we make it too easy for people just to pull out the data, they maybe won't engage so much, and we won't know whether what they've been doing has been useful, and won't be able to improve our own processes.
Well, I think you yourself referred to the right-hand column on Sarah's slide about the Ray people coming in, and that certainly said that there would be webinars and seminars and chat sessions like this, or banter sessions. So yes, I agree with you. They're all in the plan,
Yeah.
but we just got to get going and setting them up.
So I was answering the question, why do we want to get any feedback from the users? I think the reason is because we want to sort of pull them in to be fully engaged and get feedback on how they're getting on and how they're finding the advice.
Absolutely. Thank you. And now we're on to Liz again, please.
Yeah, so I was just thinking about what Sarah was saying in relation to her action plan. I mean, I was just recently doing our strategic plan, and I did two things. One, I went and put strategic plan, parish council, and looked at a whole range of parish and town council strategic plans. I then looked at what from the surface, whether it would fit with our aims. And there were some that really didn't. It was all pretty pictures, but very little else. And then there was some that was all writing, and I could see elements of it, but flipping heck, it was just a whole lot of waffle that was completely unnecessary. So what I then did is I just took the headings that I thought would be really appropriate for our strategic plan. I used ChatGPT, we were talking about AI earlier, and looked at each of the sections, what it was that I would have to include for each of those sections. So I think it's really hard unless we're going to, I was seeing the chat earlier about us peer reviewing. Nobody has the capacity to peer review anything. You know, we're all flipping busy as it is. But also, I think, as Sarah was saying, hers was just a list of actions and that is just as valid as somebody who's written a 20-page document which has everything in it.
Absolutely, I agree. Well, I don't think, Liz, you were on the Community Climate Action Plan presentation that was given by Jules several weeks ago. And he was highlighting how they got started by, rather than telling people what they were going to do, they just got them together in a room and said, okay, guys, what should we do and how should we do it? And
yeah,
that really worked well as a community. And I can see that going sort of, hopefully it would go viral and everyone would find it useful, because they also found it very useful for the naysayers, the climate deniers. And you know, Belinda is probably the one who suffers most from the climate deniers, but by having them in the same room with people who are enthusiastic and saying, well, you ought to keep quiet down there because we're doing the serious stuff.
Well, we tried to set up an environment and biodiversity group in the village. Nobody was interested. We are a typical 3,000 people in our village, and they were just not interested. And we often find that with our council is the one that's leading the climate action, and they are trying their absolute best to do as much as they can. So whilst I liked Jules' ideas and I thought it was fabulous, then I find with Banwell is that you almost need to start the journey for them to then gather them as you go. So whilst it's amazing, so with COVID, within 3 weeks, I had 110 volunteers who volunteered to collect food, to make phone calls. They were phenomenal. But there are other things that they really couldn't care less about. We've got 2,800 houses being built in the parish boundaries for the next strategic local plan for North Somerset. And I had 13 people turned up to our first meeting.
Whoa.
The rest of them weren't interested because it's all in the fields, way, way away from them. So I think, you know, we have to be really careful that we are ensuring that we are being as open as possible and trying to collect as many different ways of doing it, and not just if Jules can do it that way, excellent. I wish my community was as proactive as his.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I agree, but I think that's part of the difficulty we're going to face when people say, what can I do? And then which information do you pass back to them? It's very tricky. Because as you say, you've got to find out what sort of issues they've got at their end. You know, what works brilliantly in Cambridge probably isn't going to work very well in Western Supermare or whatever. On the other hand, Cambridge isn't going to be overwhelmed when the Bristol Channel overflows all over northeast Somerset. So, all sorts of things. Okay, we appear to have reached the end of questions. Has anyone else got anything they'd like to comment on or make a direction or shout at us? Brilliant.
Just that there's a lot going on in chat.
Yes, well, I went through this and didn't know whether there were answers that needed to be dealt with right now.
They feel like good information for us to go away and have a think about, Graham.
Yeah, exactly.
Useful. I found that extremely useful because there are all sorts of things which I don't think we know what we want to happen. We don't quite know how to make it happen. This whole sort of wiki thing where if, for example, we don't have the information or the resource to answer a question, we just put it out there and say, one of you lot will know. I don't have any sense about how we can make that work. So I think some of this is kind of still quite aspirational, and we haven't got any better idea than you have. So if you're coming in with answers, it's just been an extremely useful session.
Yeah. So, okay, people have now decided they want to chat further. So good stuff. Jackie, would you like to start, please?
Belinda, I see your comment saying you can't access Net Zero Go. If you're a county councillor, you'll have a .gov.uk email address, won't you?
Yeah, it won't let me register.
Okay.
So it is just aimed at officers and consultants.
Okay.
It is not aimed at councillors, although it says, as you've said, if you have a .gov.uk, and by the way, town and parish councillors have .gov.uk email addresses as well.
Is Dorset County Council?
It does say that, and then when you try to register, I've just tried to register, it doesn't allow me to, because I'm not an employee or a consultant employed by my authority. And this is, sorry, go on.
Is it worth asking somebody at Dorset County Council if they've registered an officer?
Well, yeah, they probably have. I know they do all the, you know, that we've got a really good sustainability team now, so I can ask them that. But it seems wrong that those of us that are elected, particularly elected on this topic, can't access the information.
I agree. The person that's in charge of the part of the Energy Systems Catapult that developed this is Gordon Graham. And Andrew, did you contact the people from Net Zero Go when you were looking at the co-benefits?
Not yet, short answer.
Okay, well, okay.
It's interesting because I like to think that I kind of know as much as I can know in this field, but I've never heard of Net Zero Go. And for me, and I'm sorry to say this, that there is an issue with, and I think it comes from the government towards local authorities and then local authorities towards town and parish. There seems to be a little bit of an arrogance sometimes that they think they're the ones who know best. And just going through that process of trying to register, having been encouraged to do so, has made me feel very excluded, and has made me feel a little bit cross, because it's, you know, we get it all the time from our local authorities. Some of the councillors are very arrogant towards the town and parishes, and the town and parishes feel that. And even and the other interesting thing is, I think from what everyone else has been saying, that whatever we're trying to do, it has to be understanding that everybody, I think everybody's reaction is going to be difficult, and different. So, for example, I've only got 2 wards, 2 parish councils in my ward, and they're so different. Even though we're right next to each other, we're both right on the coast. Okay, one is a village, one is a town. But what we are able to do, it depends entirely on volunteer capacity and interest. And the parish council is the little one next door. They've made huge strides in the last few years in turning the parish council mentality around to be much more positive. And it, you know, so we're in a position where we're trying to provide as much information as possible and example case studies, but no, you know, that it's not necessarily prescriptive, because what communities are able to do will just depend entirely on their own situation. So it's such a difficult balance, isn't it? Sort of being helpful without being prescriptive.
It is. When I was working with them, and we got to the point where Innovate UK were releasing all the money because they thought it was going to be valuable. It was in my feedback that you've got the government giving it to Innovate UK giving it to the Energy Systems Catapult, to the Energy Revolution Integration Service, blah, 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 telling all these local authorities they can do this. One thing that they didn't consider, or wasn't included in Net Zero Go, was how you actually get the local authorities to communicate with communities. And I thought that was missing. That was in my feedback. You're missing a big part. Without communities on board, you're not going to achieve anything that you're setting out to.
Yeah, and I just think, I mean, just quickly, I think places like Devon and Cornwall seem to have done that really, really well. And Dorset is playing catch up because it became a unitary authority in 2019. So much of its energy was on the whole reorganisation that involved, and they've made huge strides in the last 2 or 3 years. But still, how they communicate and what they think they're communicating isn't quite hitting where it needs to yet. So there's still a huge kind of like upwards and downwards communication exercise that we're trying to get right.
I suspect
one more thing, sorry. I've just got one thing to say. I was on holiday in Dorset last week and I was a little bit late to the banter session, but we went around lots of little villages, and I was really delighted to see how active a lot of the local communities. We were in Charmouth, and
that's my patch. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. That's my little village.
I was amazed at the community fridges, the community pantries, the bus shelter recycling. There's so much going on, and I was amazed, and I'm delighted to see how much was going on while we were traveling.
Oh, that's lovely. I will pass that through if I may.
So I'm just looking at the comment from Liz in the chat about South Gloucester has an environment officer. You might be a classic community sort of advisor from our point of view.
Yeah,
trying to rope him in.
So it's a her.
Like that.
It's I was going to it's Daisy Fania.
Yes.
I said it's a her. It's
Yes.
Daisy Fania. Andrew, I don't know if you made contact with Daisy when we first chatted a couple of years ago.
Again, not yet.
No, that's fine. So she
not
is.
lost the name.
Yeah, no, she's Frampton Cottrell's the environment officer for there, but she was poached from our comms officer position to work with South Gloss. And they've just employed her for this new project, which is to create the action plans for all the town and parish councils. Bless her, she very kindly said that she'd help us because she originally wrote ours 2 years ago. But she's an amazing resource. So if you can, I was thinking about one of your banter sessions, you might want to think about getting her along because she is a fantastic resource. She does an amazing thing with hedgehogs, and the work she's done with Frampton Cottrell and all of the hedgehog work she's done was just inspiring. It really was.
Could you chuck any contact information you've got into the chat, please? Thank you. It has struck me listening to people talking that things are going to change over the next few years, that a lot of the people who are reluctant or climate change deniers or just can't be bothered are all going to, I think, change their mind when they find that the flooding and the heat waves and everything else becomes a normal part of our lives. That I remember reading perhaps a year ago an article in The Economist that said that people are all wondering and getting slightly worried about what's happening to the climate and climate change. And they said, basically, the message is you ain't seen nothing yet. That what we're seeing at the moment is merely a herald of what's to come. It's going to get a hell of a lot worse before it gets better. And I suspect that you'll find that a lot of the objections to the sort of work that we're trying to do will disappear as it becomes more familiar to a larger part of the population. Frankly, I'm always astonished at how much ground is being covered at ground level. It's the governments that seem to be failing to get to grips with everything, but the local communities are really on the ball. Amanda, would you like to pitch in, please?
Thank you. Yeah, I think it was Belinda who said about not, watching our language and not calling it climate change. So I'll take what Graham's just said and say as far as environmental action is concerned, right across the board, I think some of the comments you just made apply. So as far as, because I think a lot of our communities do a lot to do with biodiversity, where they might not be doing so much with climate change, etc. So let's talk about the whole environment action.
Yeah.
And that's why we called ours the Environment Action Working Group. So, you know, Belinda, I hear you and I'm very much with you on that one. And just to, I actually put my hand up at the point where we were talking about Net Zero Go. And I just want to say that for the at least three district councils that use a common service publica for all their officers, they don't have .gov.uk, they have publica.org. So they wouldn't be able to get into it either. And only the councillors would be able to, and then the councillors wouldn't be able to get in because they're councillors. So I'm just adding to Belinda's frustration, but in a respectful way, Jackie, so that you're not feeling that this is aimed in any way at you having mentioned it. I don't think Belinda meant that, and I don't. But it's just extra feedback if you've got any route back to making that point or to opening the doors for us now.
I still know the people's emails, but I haven't worked with them for nearly 3 years.
Well, it'd be great to have a look at Net Zero Go for sure.
It was getting to be pretty phenomenal. I could get to the point where somebody that didn't know anything at all about energy or climate change could put in what their corporate objectives were and produce a project initiation document within about 20 minutes. A very professional looking one. There was that much information in it. It was pretty amazing. Somebody mentioned climate action plans. I'm a member of Knapton Parish Council's Climate and Environment Working Party, and we've done a parish-wide survey to see what people want to see as their priorities. And so we've now got a clear action plan of what we need to do. The top of the list was do a repair cafe. We've got about 1,000 people in the village, so we're having our first repair cafe on Saturday, and the Saturday after we're having a talk about how climate change will affect your garden. So we're going through the action plan that people have said they want, and if anybody wants to see the survey that we've sent out to all residents and businesses in the parish, or the final data report, I'm happy to share.
Oh yes, please. Really like that.
Okay.
Thanks, Jackie. And was that the point you wanted to make?
Yes.
Okay. So I just want to not tread on people's toes. Sarah, please.
So just a final point, I've got to go off and shout at Network Rail next, is that the point that Amanda just made about the difference between focus on biodiversity and focus on carbon, I think is really central, because people like doing biodiversity things, or certainly down at my level they do. They like wildflowering, orchards, trees. They're not very interested in EV cars and that sort of thing. But then I know they're interconnected, but I think the right-hand side of the Venn diagram, which is carbon reduction, is much more about projects that people aren't really interested in. So I think whenever I'm talking to folk where I live, and I say, what's your carbon footprint? You know, how much carbon you're using a year? I might have as well have said it in another language. It just doesn't impact at all. And it's so important. And when you actually do the carbon calculators and find out how much you're using, and then you multiply that up nationally, and then my favorite thing is to turn that into polar bears. So if you had that weight of polar bears floating about in the atmosphere, you'd be really scared. So we put that one in the too difficult column. And I think if there are ways we can think of to get the information out there through the great collaboration of, you're using 13 tons, you should be using 2, what are you going to do about it, is a really important part that actually even I'm skidding over because it's too difficult. And on that note, I'm going to disappear, but it was such a useful session, and thank you so much to everybody for contributing. Cheers. See you next
Sarah.
time.
Thank you.
Thank
Belinda,
you.
please.
Hi, yes, I was just going to agree with what Sarah's saying, but also it is tricky, because as soon as we start talking about personal behaviour change, I then become a bit uncomfortable, because I don't really think that's what we're principally trying to do here, and I don't think it's necessary. It's just really awkward. I'm not sure it's the role of town and parish councillors, or even, well, community groups could do it possibly, And there are various places that do that, like Geeky Zero is a carbon calculator, but you can do it at group or individual level. I'm sure there are lots of other ones now. The Dorset have got the Dorset Green Living Project, which has been going for years and years through Sustainable Dorset. But I just feel really uneasy. So I do carbon literacy training, and in that, even within those of us that are involved in the carbon literacy training for town and parish councillors, different trainers will have different focuses, and some of them do think that the role is to enable people to understand their own, their own sort of personal behaviour. And whereas I kind of feel like communities have got to understand what they can do collectively, and if that means getting together and influencing their parish councils, then that's one route. But yeah, it's fraught with difficulty, isn't it? And I know that Dorset Council, for example, renamed their climate and ecological emergency strategy. They renamed it the Nature Recovery, Climate and Ecological Strategy. So they took the word emergency out, they put nature recovery front and centre, and that was partly a political move in order for the majority party to be more comfortable with their own strategy. But it was also recognising, I think, that the government has got its act together in a way far more quickly on the nature recovery and the biodiversity net gain and all of the metrics and the guidance and the policies. That sort of seems to be falling into place more quickly than their actual net zero stuff has, as Sarah says. And I think Amanda and Liz were also saying, because the energy side of things is more technical and more difficult, and people are off put by the ideas of heat pumps and EV and chargers, and it's not, so there's lots of good reasons to talk about the more general stuff. But yes, and also recognising that there are some very well organised climate deniers out there, which are quite threatening for councillors to have to deal with. And we need to be sort of armed with the confidence that we're doing the right thing in order to be able to counter that, because it's quite scary to be personally threatened. So yeah, everything fraught with difficulty, but we are doing the right thing.
Thanks, Belinda. Andrew, please.
Just a quick update on the government. From my experiences of being the single town and parish council representative on the local net zero strategy, yes, there does seem to be any energy from within government, or certainly within the civil service, certainly within the Department of Energy that run that forum, to get a real joined up programme and action across every line of government in order to achieve what we're talking about. I try and speculate why it is they're not doing that. I'm thinking, if I could find one that I thought would give me a straight answer, I'd widen the drink and open my ears. I suspect part of it may be about they don't like the idea of being charged with embarrassing their ministers, whoever the minister is this week. In other words, that there's a programme with targets that isn't met. I think part of it is some civil service departments are still playing the game of, oh, we'll go for the comprehensive spending review and we'll get some more money at the expense of some other department. I notice, I think the next spending review is now being kicked into past the general election, whatever it is. I don't know, therefore, how much, one or two people from other departments attend those forums, but they don't seem to say very much. But I do also wonder whether if there was a real programme laid out, what were the priorities, what might be done, and we put out, and it was the cost of those things was published. I think that may actually cause more grief and certainly cause more concern and perhaps possibly less action than not having that information. And I don't defend that. I'm just wondering that is one of the reasons why, one of the many reasons I suspect why civil servants in the Department of Energy are not powering ahead with getting a comprehensive joined up net zero programme. I'm not the only person on that forum who thinks this way. And I'm pleased that that's the case. But the case continues to try and work out, why can't we do this? Each individual department has got various responsibilities. I think of the Department of Transport. I think I'm trying to do some more stuff with DEFRA, because DEFRA not only have the nature recovery, but they also have the adaptation bit as well. So I strongly suspect DEFRA are doing a lot better than, frankly, the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero. So yeah, the case continues.
Brilliant, Andrew. Thank you very much. I think it's time to call the session to a close, and let me just echo Sarah. It's really good that you've all been so vigorous and helpful and participating. Thank you very much indeed. It's been tremendous to be on the receiving end. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.